we are in Excel. If you don't have access to this workbook, that is okay, because we basically build this from a blank worksheet but started in a prior presentation. So if you want to build the entire worksheet from a blank sheet, you could begin back there or just follow along, possibly building the part of the workbook that we're currently working on. If you do have access to this workbook, though, 4 tabs down below, including a very colorful fretboard tab, we may refer to the example tab, in essence the answer key, practice tab, having pre-formatted cells so you could practice the practice problem with less Excel formatting. But if you do not have any of that, that is okay, because we will continue to work in the blank tab where we started from scratch with a blank worksheet, continuing this time in essence in the blank part of the worksheet, practicing not only our music skills but our Excel formatting skills as well, for formatting's sake. Quick recap of the objective and what we have done thus far. We want to be creating a system to jot down our musical information, our songs, our tunes, our melodies as efficiently as possible, so that we can automatically transpose them, even if we're writing them just by hand, paper and pencil, transpose them to all 12 collections of 7 notes without having to rewrite them, and possibly be able to rotate them to all 7 modal perspectives, changing the tonic as we do so. This is how I imagine and predict DAW systems will be in the future, in essence having 2 dials that we can shift everything that we write down within. That's how it should be, and that's how we're going to make it happen here. So we have the MIDI numbering system that we started with. This is kind of the computer numbering system that'll be behind the scenes that we'll use as we go forward. This is going to be the local numbering system for the 12 notes. This is how human beings should be using a numbering system, because it is useful to have simple math, adding, subtraction, so on, and you know. And then we've got the Nashville number system. So we would like to be writing our information down from the perspective of a 7-note collection, still being able to use all 12 notes, but from the perspective of a relative position. And that is the thing that allows us the dials that we can turn automatically, transposing all of the music that we write as possible, and well as rotating it. We then have our chords written in multiple ways, remembering that sheet music often doesn't have chords. You just have to stack the notes, as is the case with a DAW system. But it would be nice, particularly for people that don't have musical understanding for stacking chords, to have at least the basic chords, all the chords that can be constructed from the 7 modal perspectives available. And these are those chords. We can write those as well, however, without note references, but rather references to relative positions. As we do that, then we can actually list out the chords, such as a Lydian chord, by Nashville number, meaning it's a 4-6-1, otherwise known as a modal point of a Lydian, Aeolian, and Ionian node. Now the problem with this, however, is that that Ionian isn't giving me octave perspective. I would like to make sure it's an Ionian that's higher in pitch. For that, I can use an absolute modal numbering system or Nashville numbering system, meaning it's going to be a 4-6-8. The 8 representing that it's going to be higher in pitch. 8 minus 7 is 1, so it's still going to be an Ionian. All right, and then we have our collection of notes over here. These are the 12 collections of notes in our Western music, but we're going to label them not as scale degrees, but as relative positions. So now we have the relative positions, once again, that giving us the dial that allows us to rotate automatically between the collections of notes. We have the actual data input, which I would recommend as just sheet music, even if you're writing by paper and pencil, possibly eliminating normal chord construction needing notes, but instead use Nashville numbers both for the chords and for the notes, noting that that does not restrict you to 7 numbers, because you can use a 0.5 for the notes that are in what I call the ocean, outside of the collection. Why would you do that? Because then you can just say what collection of notes that you are using, and like the C major collection of notes, for example, say what the tonic is, like the Ionian being the tonic, and then you can write your music in such a way that it could automatically be transposable through all 12 collections of notes without you having to rewrite the notes. It's the most efficient way to do it. Now, note that if you want to do it the traditional way, then of course you could still write it this way, which I have to adjust these shortly. We'll do that in a second. But you can write it with reference to the note names. And then if you're using a DAW system or even just an AI software like a ChatGPT, will be able to transpose it to something without note names if you give it the proper information. That then allowing you to transpose it to all 12 collections of notes very easily. All right, and then once we have this middle section is what I would like to represent as where we're going to work, like the middle part of the piano. If we're working on C, like something in C major, then this middle column is going to start at C4 and go up to the end, to B4, right? But if we're playing in the key of D Dorian or something like that, or D major or something, I would like the lowest note to be D and then go 12 octaves up from there. So that would mean that this middle bit should be whatever the middle point that we're starting on, the lowest note for the middle place that we're working on, which usually would be like middle C upwards, and that would be the idea. And then you could go up here. Basically, if you're going an octave higher than that, what does that allow us to do? It allows us to write chords here, which represent multiple notes, and it allows us to write our notes on one row instead of having to break out one octave into this whole column. Now, a DAW system should be able to go back and forth from writing in this format to showing it in this format, which is an absolute numbering system, and then breaking it out into like a DAW system that shows each note. So that would be expanding just this orange bit to this 12 row bit here. And so now I can see all of the numbers represented in absolute numbers on the right hand side. So that's where we left off last time. So this is basically just proving the concept that we can do this. The DAW system has the capacity to do this. The fact that current DAW systems do not do this means that there's an opportunity for somebody out there, in my opinion, to put this into the system, or so that basically people can easily by ear have the two dials to rotate their music around. All right. So I'd also just like to say, well, I could copy this whole thing to the right and then say, let's convert this to show not these numbers, but possibly show the notes, or possibly show relative position, which would be the local Nashville numbers. Let's show that would be more user-friendly to a player of the guitar. This is the way the system might like to see it from a computer system, showing the absolute number. So let's just copy this whole thing. I'm going to copy from the skinny on over to here, copy that, and I'll paste that up top, paste, and we have the same format. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of the numbers. Now the numbers are not there anymore because the formulas are all out of whack. But I'm going to make this a little larger. Why doesn't it doesn't want to show that in A? What happened to that? That's weird. Let me check that out. This B is saying give me that X lookup. Is that 3 right there? So let's say that these are all going to be the same. Let's do this by going this equals this, and I'm going to just copy that formula to the right so it just have the same columns. I'm going to paste it formulas only, and I could paste that all the way down. So I'll just say these are just going to be dependent on the columns to the right. Just paste that all the way, formulas only. All right, so there we have it. So that should work. And then what I'm going to do is adjust this formula. So all the formulas don't work. So I'm going to take this whole formula bit, Control Shift down, and Control Shift down, and I'll just delete all of that. So now nothing's in there. So what do I want it to do? I want it to take the number that's over here, if there's anything in here, and possibly return to me, let's return the letter first. So this should be pretty easy to do. Let's see if we're going to say equals X lookup and then tab. and I want to say look up the related cell over here, which has that 60 in it, comma, and I want to look that up over here. I don't need a range. I'm just going to say look that up right there in that one cell, and then comma. If you see that, then give me the related C. So it's going to give me that. So it's going to see that 60, give me the related C, enter. There it is. Okay, great. Now the problem is, what if it doesn't see that in there? So if I double click on this again, if it doesn't see it, I'm going to put a comma at the end. If it's not found, I want you to just leave it blank, which is going to be double quotes, nothing between them, leaving it blank, enter, boom. All right, so now I need to copy this to the right and up to test it. So if I go in it, notice that this cell over here, I want it to move both up and to the right. So that one I leave alone. This one, however, is representing that 60. I want it to be able to move up, mixed reference, but not to the right. So I want to allow the number, but I don't want it to move to the right. So a $, mixed reference before the letters. This one also, I want to allow it to move up, but not to the right. So a $, before the letters, not the numbers, $, mixed reference, and then I can copy it to the right and say, does it work? It does, it looks like, because there's a blank. Let's copy it and paste it all the way across this thing and see if it works. So I'm going to paste it formulas only, right click, paste formulas only, and boom. So that looks, so now we've got like our DAW system that's showing us just letters, and I know which octave it's in because we're starting here in the middle bit, and then it's reaching up, so this C is in the next range of octaves. Okay, that's cool.